And video.
Yeah.
Should I grab another chair or? Not sure who's here. I can get one. It's in the other room. I'll grab one.
Oh, yeah. Hey, hey, good. Did you sign in? Has everybody had a chance to sign in?
All right, excuse me.
There you sign in.
Yep.
Oh, it's
Hey there.
You had a chance to.
So I'm not sure the size of the print, but we have one of these to share. Who would like this first? And there's no shame for that. This is not an ophthalmology.
Brought my own. Exactly. Well, it's two, it's. Yeah, I mean, we full size sets of these. Well, I don't know.
This is the full set. This is full set.
It should be.
Okay. Then you can mention that we'll post these later. We'll put them on the.
Okay. Yeah, and they're still, like, they're 95%.
Right.
They're drafts,
Okay.
but they're pretty close to where they should be.
Has everybody had a chance to sign in?
Does everyone have an 11 by 17? Any of them?
I can pass this around.
Okay, everybody, I think everybody has it. I'm adding.
What asked Kathy or something, take them off, maybe ask them to say something, so we see it, so we've got audio. I don't know. I think our attention right now, we're just trying to figure out, yeah, it looks like it's on.
We're trying to accelerate the schedule a little bit, because there's opportunities for the end of the year for funding construction, so we're.
Kathy?
We're moving along as quickly as we can.
Kathy,
Yes,
testing the audio, and you just.
We just wanted to make sure our audio was working and you just did that for us. Thank you.
Yep.
We're good to go, so the question is it loud enough?
I'm gonna add on the list,
No.
Elizabeth.
Oh,
I was just writing down who was on.
all right.
And that'll be the EP, and that'll be the Army Corps.
Yeah, let's just switch mirrors for us.
There, I don't see many changes. But.
You're gonna send a signage around.
Everybody's fine.
Scott, come up here with us. Got a chair for you.
I have two more meters. You don't have one?
This year, and,
Oh, seriously?
okay, good. Two. Jeff, are we ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna do the intro stuff, but.
Okay, yep, I think Sarah's all set with the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Should be all good to go.
Thank you. Sorry, we don't have enough chairs. I mean, we can squeeze some more in the back kitchen area if you wanna bring some in for the fire department. Okay, first of all, I wanna thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout. I'm very, very pleased to see all of you here. I just am curious, how many of you live on Newbury Neck Road or off on the side road? Okay, how many of you don't? Maybe that's what I should have started. Okay, good, good. Well, that's great news. I'm glad we have some people that don't live on the neck, here too. I'm gonna first introduce the select board. I know most of you here, but, Chris Stark is the select board member. And Pat Kane is the newest member of the select board, and I'm Mary Allen. I'm the chair of the select board. I think I got that by default, but that's another story. Jeff Reed is a senior civil engineer from CVMR Engineers from Cumberland, Maine. He's gonna present the final concept design and cost estimates. I want to mention that we have Sierra Malay and Lorella Jane from Department of Transportation. $75,000 for this project came because of the Department of Transportation grant we submitted. Okay. We're gonna ask her a little bit toward the end of the presentation, but Jeff, we're gonna talk a little bit about what funding opportunities might we apply for through Department of Transportation and maybe other sources that she knows of. We also want to make sure that we mention the Department of Marine Resources that funded the rest of the cost of this project. Alan Kratz is, Alan, okay, he's back. He's our grant consultant and very good networker. We have a chair over there. Thank you. And Sarah LaValle is our new tax collector and deputy clerk, and she's volunteered to come in tonight and do the Zoom presentation. A few housekeeping, just announcements. The attendance list is going around. Please make sure you signed it. And questions and answers will follow the presentation by Jeff. If you have re-qualifying questions during his presentation, I hope it's okay if somebody just raises their hand and said, I don't understand what you mean.
And that'd be fine, but I think if we can, most of the questions, when we were here last month,
Yeah.
There were so many questions, I didn't even make it through the full PowerPoint, so.
Right, so let's hold the questions till the end. Okay. We're not taking questions from Zoom participants, but I want them to know that we'll have the recording on our website in probably a couple of days, maybe by Friday, but I can't promise it because Emily's not here. And then I'm just gonna, some of you who weren't here at the last meeting, I'm gonna just briefly describe why we're here and why Jeff is here and why Sierra is here. In storms in 23 and 24 caused serious overtopping of Newbury Neck Road at the beach, resulting in closure of the road on 4 instances. This is the only emergency evacuation route for the 140 households south of the beach. Repairs and removal of rocks and debris cost the town upwards of, well, over $300,000. That's from our little tiny budget that we have for the town of Surry. To put that in perspective, our total road maintenance annual budget is $400,000. So that just ate up most of Stanley's budget for the year. We did get some of that back from FEMA. We're hoping to get a little more reimbursement. We can't keep incurring these costs, and more importantly, we can't put people south of the beach in danger. The select board has been addressing ways to prepare for coastal flooding. In 2022, we received funds from the state to study our climate vulnerability with an emphasis on coastal flooding of town resources. The study revealed 3 vulnerable places in Surrey. Guess what? Carrying Place Beach, the Crossroad, and the town pier. While the study was underway, the engineers told us to be aware of the 3 dates when the tides could be unusual. As it turned out, those dates were right on when we suffered the most damage in late 2023 and early 2024. I also want to mention that Senator Susan Collins and Angus King submitted to the Appropriations Committee, Senate, a request from Surrey for just shy of $3 million, which will hopefully be approved for fiscal year 26. And that those monies we hope will be applied for the actual construction. So without further ado, Jeff, we're here to hear you tonight.
Great,
Thank
perfect. So yeah, you pretty much took care of my first slide, which was great. So just a title sheet with the project name and why we're here. I did include some notes from the first presentation we did about a month ago. I wasn't sure if we were gonna have any new members. Just to kind of catch everybody up on what the issues were, what the problem is, who we are and why we're here. So as Mary had indicated, there was a preliminary study completed by GEI, very thorough, came up with some different options for the fix. 6-8 months ago, a proposal was put out, and we competed for that. Basically, the task was to review GEI's items, vet some of the proposed solutions, and then work with the select board and the community to move forward towards an appropriate solution for this problem. We started doing our preliminary studies, including geotechnical investigation, wetlands evaluation, and we did some boundary and some topographic survey as well. Early in the year, we wrapped that up in June, and then we started working on preliminary design concepts and presented those last month in July. We got some great feedback from the board. We got some great feedback from the town. We've kind of refined and revised some of these ideas. Right now, we're at about a 95% design set, so almost finished, but still a little bit of wrapping up to do and some fine tuning. So we can jump, so project details, right? What we've done is we've adjusted the road elevation to elevation 15. Okay, and that was one of the elevations identified in the preliminary study. It was the higher of the two. As a point of comparison, the lowest point on Newbury Neck Road in this project area is about 8.9 feet. It's right above, it's right by the parking area, right by that culvert. So this is going to represent a little over 6.1. I mean, the deepest fill here, we're looking at about 6 feet. It'll obviously taper on the edges. Some of the later slides, I show plan and profile sections that kind of give you a feel for how much fill is going to be required and where the thickest sections will be. So that elevation 15 was significant because it helps to address all of the static sea level. So anticipating a 5-foot sea level rise by 2090, all of the static, high tide flooding, 100-year flood elevations are going to be addressed by this. It also goes a ways toward the other issue, which is storm and storm surge, where you've had wave heights and everything else. This is not going to be high enough if we have, in 50 years from now, we have maybe 3 or 4 feet of sea level rise and we have a big storm at an astronomical high tide, you're still going to see wave action over the top of the road. But this is going to go a long way towards helping us address that. I mean, obviously what we're trying to do here is we're trying to balance efficiency with economy to get the most mileage out of the work that we're doing right now. The armoring that we're proposing is in part supported by Maine DEP. what they had allowed us to do is eliminate the dune permitting if we elevated the road and then armored the ocean side of the embankment with, heavy riprap, similar to what's there right now. So it'd be large stone. What we're proposing is laying it back at about a 1-to-1 elevation to improve the stability. It'll be a rough surface, which will also help, dissipate wave energy, and provide long-term, stability, for the work that we're looking at here. On the opposite side, on the inboard side, if you will, those slopes are gonna be a little bit more gentle, and they're gonna be a combination of vegetation and, smaller riprap. We're gonna vegetate and lay the slopes back at a 2-to-1 where we can to minimize that transition, and provide some stability. The 1-to-1 riprap slopes, come in adjacent to, wetland areas. And what we're using that for is we're using the riprap to allow a steeper slope so that we can minimize the impact to the wetlands that fell. So. What else do I have there for notes? Right, so there are a couple of existing cross culverts there that are gonna be maintained. The big culvert, well, it's a 2-foot diameter culvert right now, it'll be a much larger culvert later. To the salt pond, is an item that, DEP also wanted addressed. If you remember, for those of you who were at the last presentation, we discussed the peat and the instability there. We vetted that a little bit more with our geotechnical engineer. And I think what we can do is we can raise this up a little bit, instead of using a big precast concrete, open bottom, culvert section that needs footings and then additional support. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put in a 6-foot diameter, so a large culvert, okay, and we're gonna sink that into or below the flow line of that channel that's gonna be between the salt pond and the beach, 18 inches below. And by doing that, we're able to meet the stream smart standards. It will allow, we'll fill that 18 inches with stream bed type material. And that will allow fish passage during very high water events, terrestrial passage. And it'll meet the goals and the intent of the agreement that we have with DEP to permit this. The added advantage is that it's a much lighter structure, it's a much more economical structure. It'll work better with the construction phasing, where we have to keep one side of the road open at all times. And I think it'll be a much better solution. There's some details that I have later in the presentation, some figures that kind of show the buildup there. It gets a little nerdy and into the nuts and bolts. But I'm sure there are a few people here who will go seeing that too. Another item that was very important was parking for the existing beach. I also have a slide that outlines what we're doing there. Again, to minimize the wetland impacts, we held the toe of the existing area, filled that back at a 1-to-1, and then took that area and just kind of reorganized it a little bit. What we ended up with was 12 parking spaces. We're moving the dumpster a little bit. We're moving the bathrooms. One of those is going to be a van accessible space that will mark. Obviously, we can't paint gravel, but we'll have signage for a van accessible ADA parking space there too. So that was great. We also have a couple of ideas where we're going to maintain the existing roadside parking, both on the north end. That'll show up better in some of the slides I have, but we're trying to maintain and the number of parking spaces that we have there. We know how valuable a resource it is, and we certainly don't want to lose any more than we have to. Which ties into the final item, which was the beach access. And we're going to maintain the existing access points to the beach. There's one on the south, one kind of south central, and then the main one by the parking lot, which has that aluminum kind of ramp, and we'll have a similar situation there too. It's going to be a little bit taller. It's going to be a ramp down to a landing to another ramp, because those are the ADA standards that we have to maintain. But we're planning to keep, all of those access points and maintain the ADA accessibility at the northern end. So. The next slide I have is it's a view of the whole project. I've broken this down into, a north half and a southern half, just because this is really hard to see. But what I've done is I've added some colors and I'm hoping they show up here okay, for you guys. If you go to the next slide, Sarah. Okay, so that'd be the southern section. Okay, and what we've done. So what the colors represent, so the purple is riprap. The green is vegetation. The yellow is. In this case, it's existing and future off-street parking. And then the pink areas are sections of driveway and Carrying Place Road, where we're gonna have to match in, where we're raising the road. We're gonna have to blend this into the existing driveways and Carrying Place so that we maintain access through there. So this is kind of a high level view of that. The next slide shows the northern section, and you can see it's shaped very similarly to the parking there is shaped very similar to what it is right now. We've kind of restriped it and reorganized it. Again, I have another slide that details that a little bit better. Again, this is just kind of a high level view. The pink fuchsia, I guess, right below the parking area there, is gonna be a combination stair and ramp. The little orange crossing the road is the new culvert with some riprap on the inlet and outlet for protection. The pink all the way over on the left is where we tie into Carrying Place Road. And then the yellow on the right-hand side. It was good because we're actually able to, by the beach naturally kind of curves away from the road at that very northern section. So with that stabilization, we didn't have to encroach onto the beach a little bit. There is a section on the southern end where we did have to bump that out just because in order to get vehicle parking on that side, there was just no space. The way this works out is that by raising this up to elevation 15, we're able to keep most of the grading within the right of way. And we're able to minimize the encroachment out onto the beach, which is great. I know at a high tide, there's really not a lot left there. So we didn't want to take any more. And then I have some detailed slides. So the next one is the detail that I had shown, kind of the parking area. And it's a little bit different than there is right now, but we tried to move stuff around and work within that existing footprint to optimize the number of spaces. We can get 12 in there right now with a drive aisle and then a crosswalk going across to the other side. On the same side of the road, we've got 7 spaces that we'll be able to grade out, and then on the beach side, there'll be another 3. Again, and that won't have to encroach out onto the beach to do those. If we needed or wanted to do an extra space there, we probably could. But we need to be careful because all the way on the right side, you can see that little blue line coming across. That's an existing culvert, kind of right at the limits of our work. And that is pretty severely eroded out on the outlet side. It makes like a little gully. Part of what we're gonna do is try to expand this area to improve and stabilize that as well. So that'll be good. The next slide that we have outlines how we're gonna be tying into into Carrying Place Road and the 2 driveways that are gonna be impacted by this project. So what we're proposing, what we show for grading right now is we've got basically 25 feet off the existing edge of pavement. We've got a slightly flatter area, it's gonna be about 2%. Okay, and what that's gonna do is that's gonna provide a nice kind of level area for somebody to pull up look both ways before they come out into traffic. That 2 foot, 2% will transition into a 5%, so that we can then match into grade. As a frame of reference, 5% is not particularly steep. You know, what that represents is a 5 foot elevation change in 100 feet. It's steeper than 2, but what it allows us to do is try to match in as quickly and safely and as efficiently as we can to the existing roads and driveways. The next slide that I have is kind of a section view of the culvert and how this works out. You can see the hatch with no color on the bottom represents bedrock, and then the kind of bluish is marine clay. On top of that is peat. What we show, and it's a little bit hard to see with this slide. I was hoping that would have come out more clearly. So that pink is the 6 foot culvert. Okay, and I'll just get up near and point. That runs from here to the bottom of the brown. What this brown represents is that 18 inches of stream bed material inside the culvert. Okay, so even though it's 6 feet, the top of the stream, if you will, is going to be 18 inches above that. So it's going to be recessed into the ground. That'll help with our scour, and that'll help with the stability of that long term. As far as nuts and bolts, that's going to be sitting, we're going to over excavate that a little bit. Our geotechnical engineer had recommended basically setting that on a mat constructed of crushed stone wrapped in a geotextile to provide some stability. But based on the weight of this, everything else, they believe that this is going to go a long way towards addressing not only settlement at this area, but differential settlement between the area directly underneath the culvert and the area adjacent to it. Which is one thing that we're looking at trying to minimize as much as we can. So that's the culvert, crossing. Oh, I think I was supposed to come out. That's a different view of it, but it shows that little mat underneath. It shows the culvert with the stream bed material in it, and then some different fill and build up of the road section. Guardrail across the top. Skip to the next. These were some generic details on the riprap and how some of that's going to be constructed. The one that kind of looks like a little S is smaller diameter riprap, and that's what we'd be looking to place adjacent to the wetlands. The larger, and it's a little out of scale there. It looks smaller, but it's not. I mean, that toe. I mean, this is a heavier riprap section, 5 by 5. So we're gonna have a massive, basically toe at the bottom of this to support the slope coming back. That'll be on the ocean side. See what we have next here. No, next. So, that basically is the project and where we're at right now. Like I said, very close to having a final design. And getting it ready for submitting for permitting. Next steps for us, and I can give you kind of rough timeline as well. We're working a little bit on an accelerated schedule. I think initially we were going to be trying to wrap this up late winter, early spring, but based on some funding opportunities and some other things, we're trying to accelerate that now. So based on questions, comments, feedback from the meeting today, we'll go back, we'll wrap up this drawing set, and then we're going to start preparing our permit applications for the project. So probably over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be wrapping up the drawings. The next month or two, we'll be working through permit applications and getting those submitted. We have applications with the town, we'll have applications with DEP, and we'll also have applications with the Army Corps of Engineers. And we're planning to submit all of those in tandem, so that they can all be in separate review with different reviewing agencies at the same time, so hopefully we get them all back at the same time. And the goal is to try to have responses and approvals back from the different regulators in December, by the end of the year, which is aggressive. And I'm hoping that we can make that happen. Like I said, it's an accelerated schedule that we're trying to complete to help with some of the funding on it, because, I mean, this is not gonna be an inexpensive project, unfortunately. Our current estimate has this right around $3.5 million. So it's a big one. After all the permit applications are in, I didn't have the funding here because I wasn't sure. We're certainly happy to help the town if we can, but that wasn't part of our original scope with this proposal, but you know, we can do that. And the next step would be ideally to work towards construction plans, construction specifications, and bid documents in January, so we can get this thing bid for next year. That is the goal. So
So we'll entertain questions.
the next slide
Oh.
says.
So try to take these in order.
Yeah.
Is this the only scenario on the table in terms of full funding? And construction?
Is this the only
Option.
option on the table?
that you're
regarding-
Considering
Right,
this height and this cost.
yes, the other option that was presented to us as a possibility was taking the road from,
So there were two others that were originally proposed as part of that preliminary study. One was raising the road to elevation 12. Okay, which was not gonna provide the protection or the security that raising it higher would do.
Because the way I read this, you're protecting against the high tide in 2050.
So this will address the high tide through this, so there's a couple different things going on here. One is static high tide and sea level rise. And the other ties into the storm surge and wave, a coastal wave analysis. So this elevation will take care of the projected sea level rise and static sea level elevation. Okay, when you add the waves on top of that, it's gonna do a really good job of protecting it now. As sea level rises, obviously the waves are still gonna be high.
Because the rise, it says. The 15 feet will exceeds the anticipated intermediate tide for 2050, 2100, and the anticipated high sea level tide at 2050.
Okay.
So it covers this,
I thought I had seen in there that it was 2090 was the static.
okay, but my main point is there a midpoint if we don't get the full funding? Is there a midpoint that would cover us through 2050? Not at 6 feet addition.
Maybe, but we're kind of, I'll say we're past that at this point. But that was part of what we were going through at the last
And
meeting.
what if we don't get the funding?
well. I'm gonna ask Alan to explain why it's important to get this done in December. It has to do with the congressionally directed spending, and I
Right.
can explain a little bit more about that.
So we've been talking tonight about this as pre-construction funding, part of that is provided by Maine DOT, part of it by the Department of Green Resources. So now we're thinking and strategizing toward the construction fund. There are two pieces, at least two. One of them is a congressional appropriation. It's called congressionally directed spending. We used to call it earmarks. Remember those?
Yeah.
So this is special purpose funding in which members of Congress can designate from an appropriation bill spending for a very specific project. Senator Collins, Senator King have advanced this to the point where it had his proposal before the Senate Appropriations Committee. The Appropriations Committee has not acted on that. It's part of the Department of Homeland Security appropriation, which covers FEMA, immigration and customs enforcement. So it's very unlikely we've heard from our representative in Congress that this will move soon. When it does move, presumably at the end of the year, I'm saying we, the town, need to be ready with a shovel-ready project so that we can qualify for legislative pre-disaster mitigation assistance. That's the phrase by which we'll get funding. The current level is in the bill is $2.9 million. That could change. It also could mean that we don't get any appropriation. We don't know. That's all up in the air. But we're hopeful that that will go through. And then we've also talked about state funding, and that's why Sierra Malay from the Maine Department of Transportation is here tonight, because in the past, there's been the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. We didn't have a grant round this year. We may next year. Do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Surry. I work for the Maine Department of Transportation. I do all of our climate sustainability initiatives. So I do a lot of different things, but I'm the project manager for the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, as well as the Municipal Stream Crossing Program. Both programs are really focused on climate resiliency, and the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund's, main purpose is to create infrastructure that's resilient to climate change. So far, we've had 3 rounds. The first round was in 2022. We had 2 rounds in 2024. Unfortunately, we have no funding for this year, 2025. However, we do have funding through NOAA for 2026. So I'm in the very early stages of writing the request for application for those funding, which I think the request for application will be up sometime in the beginning of next year. So another reason why to have this ready to ask for construction funds. Again, early stages, I don't have a lot of details on what it will look like just yet, but it will be out sometime in 2026.
And the reason that you're here is, we've invited you to come and take a look at our crossroads situation with the Emmons Brook Marsh that is being destroyed by this tiny culvert.
Yes.
And then we persuaded you to come down and look at Newbury Neck Road at Carrying Place Beach and take a look at that, where that project hopefully will take place eventually. So
Yes,
we
it's
thank
very
you.
beautiful. I pretty much excited to come here. It's gorgeous. I have actually never been to Surrey. I'm from Maine, but from the Augusta area, so I don't come out this way all that often. And Lorella, the new hire, is supporting me in all these initiatives. She's from Chicago.
She didn't want to leave Newbury Neck Road.
Yeah.
After we talk, yeah, 100% more.
And what is the life of a permit if funding is not immediately available? So you have to go through the permitting process again at some point?
Jeff, do you have
Yeah,
experience with that?
it depends on the permit, and I have to check. I know like a site law permit, you get 7 years from the start. You have like 3 years to start construction and then 7 years to complete. The permitting that we'd be looking at here would probably be shorter duration. If we wind up doing a town site plan application, those are usually a year within a 1-year renewal. By coming and saying, well, we don't have funding yet, so we'd like to extend it for a year, but usually that caps that. I think some of the Norfolk permitting is close to 3 years. I can actually dig in and find those dates for you, but each permit's got a little different shelf life.
That might be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. I want to just take this chance, I might not get another chance to thank you and Lorella for coming up all the way from Augusta today. I know it's a long drive back, so we hope to get you back before, well, not before dark, but and thank you very much for making the trip up. George had a question and then
Alan and
Diane.
Sierra.
Augusta guest. What would the match requirements be for either of those funding sources that you described?
Congressional directed spending, no match.
For the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, it's typically 5% of the total project cost. Although it could change because this is NOAA funding, I have to discuss with
Of
them.
total project cost,
total
not just the funding that comes from,
Exactly, yeah.
but your funding comes through the federal government.
For this upcoming round, it will be through the federal government. For the past two, it was state, and for the previous one, it was through the American Rescue Plan Act, so US Treasury, federal, but very streamlined, NEPA wasn't applicable, and there were other federal stipulations of that.
And we will be looking for other sources of funding beyond DOT and being very attentive to getting those in line, consistent with permitting and all the other permitting that are required.
And you all sitting here tonight, you have agency as well. You can start writing to representatives in Augusta and in Washington, and urging them to help us find funds to fund this construction project, which is an emergency evacuation group.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Absolutely right.
so if all of you, how many 45 people in this room wrote to your senators and congressional representatives and the people in Augusta, just think, all these people from Surrey are writing to us, what's that all about? But everybody has a role in this, is what I'm trying to say. Diana, you had a question?
Yeah, Jeff, thank you for incorporating the ADA as we discussed.
Sure.
the last
Yeah,
time.
my pleasure.
Yeah, but did we consider a place for where the buses could drop off a bunch of people?
You know what? I don't have a space dedicated for that. We were so focused on trying to optimize vehicle parking.
Space, it's just a drop.
No, I understand. What I'm thinking, if you pull up the slide with the parking on it, that might be helpful. Take a look, that one. So what we had here was a fairly narrow route. So one of the things we had talked about at the meeting last month was that parking being such a limited option here. Would consideration be to have some sort of a shuttle pick up people who want to visit the beach in town or some other place and bring them here. Yeah, I could look and see, I mean, what would really be nice, I'm not sure if we have it or can manage it, maybe a smaller, like a smaller bus. So this, it's probably hard to see with this, but there's a little drive route here, a little loop. And we got some parking here, along the edge to buffer the inside. And then these angled in, that might be a good spot to, like I said,
So then that would eliminate those people who felt that they could
right,
come because they couldn't park.
right.
So I'd just like to interject here, there is an area called the Pines, and I walked it
Yeah.
with one of our residents, Steve West,
Absolutely, yeah.
a month or so ago, and it's all owned by the town.
Slides.
Some of you are familiar with the Pines, it's there are a couple of granite benches in there that I think maybe Steve and Linda put in, and lovely
it's
this
that
place
top
to
one.
sit. But Steve and I walked it, and not that we have a big
So-
pile of money to put more gravel in and make it more level, but that might be a place for a bus to stop.
Absolutely.
It's just, it wouldn't be that expensive to level off the gravel area there.
No.
And have a bus be able to pull in and. pull out.
I'm thinking we may be able to use that little loop as just a drop,
Ah,
because we wouldn't be, it's, right now it's set up as one travel lane wide,
yeah,
so
yeah,
12 feet, right?
right.
And that's what we would need to maneuver
Uh-huh.
vehicles.
Yeah.
But if we have a smaller,
You need the turnaround in addition to the
Yeah,
stop.
yeah.
right. So, we could take a look and do a quick, we've got some software that does auto turn analysis that we could take a look and see.
Follow up that,
Yeah, Moira.
you have 11 acres that the town owns
Mhm.
where the parking lot is, and you're putting in a turnaround for the fire trucks, water access. I mean, why wouldn't you just use that?
Good.
There's a level area right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when the cistern goes in, we would have obviously a turnaround for the fire trucks, which would accommodate a fairly decent sized bus, I suppose, or a smaller one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Moira, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yes, could you talk a little bit more about, I'm having trouble visualizing the water side
Okay,
of the armoring
okay.
and how far that's actually going to encroach on the beach at high tide,
Right.
or low tide. Because at high tide it's not.
Right.
But when you talked about it a couple of times and what I'm getting in my mind is it's straight up and then it goes like this. So how?
No, so, yeah, so. The detail on the bottom, right over here. If you just make that bigger. Make me just a little bit taller. So this big block of stone here is in the ground.
Oh,
It-
okay.
it's underground. The ground surface is right here. So the beach would be right at that break. So you would have a slope starting right there in sand here.
Okay.
And what we did was we set it up so that we try to maintain the toe. So that point right there is right where the bottom of that stone is right now.
Okay.
So it's gonna be working back towards the road so that we could protect and maintain as much beach area as we could. So,
I thought the previous consultants had told us that, you know, when you take the road up higher, that is going to, you know.
they wanna make bridge, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so why is that not the case?
It's math and physics. I mean, riprap is stable at a 1-to-1. If we're at elevation. We'll call it 8 right there. And then we're coming up 6 feet, so 6 feet up, 6 feet over is your 1-to-1. And then that's where we're gonna have shoulder and guardrail, and then we're gonna start the travel lane. And we have the room to do that.
And what's the ratio of that slope right now on the water side?
I think it varies. I mean, it's probably steeper than that right now. From when I was there, it almost looked vertical in spots. But you've got thickness to that too. So you've got. So if you, let's say, just by means of comparison, right? So you've got 4 feet. 4 feet of stone exposed there, and it's pretty close to vertical. But that's also, you know, it's also 3 or 4 feet thick. Right? What we're gonna do is we're gonna take that whole thing and tip it on its side. So the stone is gonna be. Part of that's actually gonna be underneath the road, underneath the shoulder. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well, which actually we have. And draw.
The drawings are right on the page.
Okay, no, I was gonna say, I would try to,
Schematic, like, do a schematic.
so, black one better?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have, the toe, right? And that's gonna be a 5x5, and then we're gonna have the beach here, right? Beach here, and then this is gonna come back at a 1-to-1, right? Up to, I mean, let's just say 6 feet. Sorry, that's upside down, left-handed. And then from here, we're gonna come over, it'll be slight slope for shoulder, road, and down. And then we'll have guardrail, here, so some of this might actually extend underneath the shoulder. But at the exposed areas, I mean, that's what you're gonna see. This is gonna be, I mean, 3 or 4 feet thick probably, because it's gonna be heavy riprap. Close to the side, I mean, it's gonna be the size of the blocks that are there. It needs to be to dissipate the wave energy and not get thrown around when you have.
Would
big
you
stones.
use some of the existing riprap? that you
Yeah, if we
talked-
can, absolutely. And that'll be more, that's not something we typically address with permitting, which is where we're going right now. But when we convert to construction drawings, at that point, we'll be able to kind of quantify that and say, when we develop our plan, you know, remove, store and reuse or reinstall the material that's there. And obviously, anything that we can reuse here, we want to. I'm even thinking like some of the granite steps. I mean, that's all, you know, there's nothing wrong with it.
Can I just back up?
Sure.
Somebody, follow up, yeah, okay, and then.
So thank you for that.
Sure.
Helpful for reference. I read something in the Q and A though, that at that, I guess at the bottom of the toe there, you're gonna end up with a 6 foot or 4 foot deep channel across in the Q and A stuff that was handed.
So yeah, so this, so if you were to cut this thing through and you're looking at it sideways, right? Yeah, this is gonna be a 5 foot wide by 5 foot deep trench all along the bottom of where the wall is now. Okay, so it's gonna run parallel to the road, parallel to the water. And what we need here is we need some mass, to make sure that that stays stable, it doesn't crumble.
So when it says an increased channel depth of up to 4 feet is possible at the culvert outlet.
You're talking about the.
No, that's a different thing, so that's, so. What we were talking about, there was a gentleman here, it was you, who had some of the Stream Smart culvert design experience, and. What happens, and what we were considering at that point was an open bottom arch. And the footings were gonna be down deep so that we could, do scour, and what happens in that situation is that the stream. Normalizes, it finds its own channel elevation, and frequently, or in a case like this, because, I mean. Low tide is down at elevation 0, and this is up at elevation, 5. You would have some scour and some cutting as it formed a natural channel. The option that we're looking at here, is actually gonna reduce that, somewhat, because it's not gonna be as deep, because we're burying the culvert, we don't need the deep foundations. And we're able to control that outlet, a little bit better. What we have proposed right now with the stream, the top of the stream bed. Click on that one. Thanks. So the top of this stream bed material here, is gonna be about 1.5 feet below the outlet of the culvert that's there right now. So it's gonna be a little bit lower. Like I said, what we're anticipating about 1.5 feet. There's no way to really know until nature does what it does. But based on our best design and our best calcs, that's where it's gonna be. So there'll be a little channel. With the other option where we were looking at a big precast concrete arch, it had a chance to go much deeper. So that's the 4 feet, I think, that we were talking about before.
Hey Jeff, I'm John Rowland.
Yep.
Probably most affected by this
Yeah,
project.
yeah.
I'm very fearful that this is gonna negatively impact value of my property, probably lawyers. Are you talking about a 6 foot rise from the lowest level of the road right now to the finish level?
At the lowest point.
So a 6 foot rise, so in front of my house, could you estimate or tell me what that rise is gonna be?
Yep.
Because it's the my property.
Well, hopefully it's not gonna impact the value of your property at all, but, okay, really,
Yes, if you go by the mailbox and you.
okay,
Driveway is there and it's 10 meters.
I will,
So there's another item in the budget.
well, I mean, that's something that should have been picked up by our surveyor, and if it wasn't.
And what's the right of way from the center of the road, these, what is it?
I think it was a 60-foot right of way, total, not from the center of the road, no, it was a 66-foot wide public. But it was not, it's not centered on the road, I mean, if you want.
Yeah, so you can go
No.
6 feet up into my yard
No,
and with that.
No. No. No, the right of way is. What I'm saying, it's not centered. On the road exactly, it runs along the beach and it runs along. Yeah, basically your front property line is the edge of the right of way.
So from the edge of the road. I don't know, when you say my front property.
So, do you wanna come up here and look at this, or? Or maybe we can do this after if they're, oh, you can use mine.
But I don't wanna tie up the whole
I just wanted to.
You wanna look at this after?
What's the rise estimated in front of my house? and about
So
the
you're
flood
at
rate,
Station
and about
5.
how much of my property, front yard will be taken up by this project?
Well, none of your front yard, because that's you, that's your septic. We're gonna be staying here. So it's all gonna be along the edge of the existing. Here's your front property line, so we're not
So
going
it's gonna be
beyond.
steep, it's gonna be a
It's gonna
2-to-1, you said?
2-to-1 coming down and then probably a little bit of a swale on that edge, just to make sure that we go. So if you're at let's say right here,
Yep. in the-
Station 5, Station 6.
Yep.
Okay, 5 and 6, you're gonna have less than 5 feet.
John,
This,
sorry, we're gonna keep going with the general questions, but
Sure, I-
Jeff can stay after. Jeff, why don't you come up after
yeah,
we finish? Thank you.
I'll scale it out and I'll tell you.
You're next. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, okay.
First of all, it's John.
That was John, yes.
Forgive me, John. Was there any consideration or discussion? Because it sounds like you're going to be redoing the entire wall.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing about 1,000 feet or so of roadway. Yeah.
Is there ever any discussion on actually, or it could be, pushing the whole back so that the whole is very high?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. Pushing the road further from the beach to,
Pushing the wall further
Yeah.
away from the water.
yeah,
So that at high tide, there was more space for individuals to use what's left of the beach.
so basically making more beach.
Yeah.
No, we didn't really think about that. What we were trying to do was work as closely within the existing right of way as we could. And we used the toe of that existing wall as a starting point so that we wouldn't make it any worse, but we were concerned about encroaching on the private property owners on the other side. So that's why it's shown where it is. And with that elevation increase, we can keep everything in there, but it's pretty tight. So we want to stay within the existing right of way.
Can I get your name before you go on, please?
Why?
Did you sign up? Sign, Christie? Okay, good.
Larry, 1591.
Thanks. You're next, Beth, and then George.
So let's say we move forward, as it sounds like some of us want to do in terms of, but say you move forward with this permitting process.
Yeah.
Twofold question, is that included in the funding we've gotten to date? And secondly, let's say that the appropriations come back and they say, Surry, you're wonderful people, we're gonna give you 500,000 instead of your 2.9 mil or whatever, what do we do then? Those are my two questions.
The permitting,
Yeah, so that's not so much the, yeah, so
There's no cost involved in that.
well, the cost is already, it's part of our fee that's already been appropriated, yeah.
And that's already been appropriated and paid
Yeah.
for, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So the second part of the question, we originally asked Senators Collin and King for $3.9 million. The next time we heard back from them, it was reduced to 3.2, and now it's 2.9. We'll take what we have, what we can get, and then we'll all go out and try to find other sources of funding to make this complete. But
So one more thing too, to piggyback on that, and there was a comment, and I'm not sure who made it, about reusing some of the materials. So as you move to construction, there are some things that you can do to save money as well. Because if we can reuse a bunch of that stone, if we can, every little bit helps. But that's the point that you would start looking at those construction cost savings options.
So we're thinking that this is all gonna be funded by someone other than the taxpayers of Surry?
that's the idea. I mean, there aren't matching funds required for. Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna make a correction, something I said before when George asked about the local match for the earmark. I was thinking of another project, actually for this, it's 10%. And it's 10%, George, you were instrumental in this, because household income in Surrey is below a certain level, so we qualify for 10% rather than 25%. So I apologize for this statement.
Other towns would be paying 25% as part of the matching, but they would contribute. We pay 10 because we're following
because of the average of some levels, so yes.
You had a question that, Beth,
You know, that answered my question,
Okay.
and then that makes Laura's question even more relevant, because for waste sources, you're always concerned about how long that permit is gonna last, the funding has to be spent. Certain minutes.
who was next? Tom? Oh, I said you were. Tom, who was had a question? Chris?
Two questions. The drawings seem to suggest that the stones are relatively regular and the same small size for the riprap. Is that just a drawing convention?
Yeah.
Or
It's just a hash pattern.
you're gonna use giant stones?
Oh, yeah. So what we'll do, and again, we'll call it out in the permitting set, as, on the ocean side, heavy riprap. And we'll specify, you can specify what they call a D50 size, which is an average diameter.
An angular quarry rock rather than.
Right,
Yeah.
right, that's why I use riprap instead of like river stone.
And the second question is, given the increased flow through the proposed culvert and the 4-foot channel on the beach, will there be either increased size to the salt pond and or potential erosion to the beach as that channel washes down and back?
I would say potential erosion to the beach, that ties into the channel that we were just talking about, right? But that will stabilize. And the mechanism for this is not. Yeah, I talk about it a lot in terms of stream and stream design and that sort of thing. Because that's kind of the convention, that's how they want us to design this, but this is gonna be tidal. And there's gonna be water coming in, there's gonna be water going out, and there's only gonna be water going in during the highest tides. So, yes, there's the potential for some erosion and some channel formation, but that's natural, and that kind of. You know, the way that I have been thinking of this is it kind of. What they want us to, what DEP wants us to do is kind of return the function and the quality of the salt pond to the way it was before the road was ever built. Right, and water came in, water went out, and that was good for the animals and the.
But in that dynamic, isn't the salt pond likely to grow? Widthwise?
I don't know, I don't think so, because I think. When you look at the basin side of the salt pond, I mean, that's fed primarily from the land around it. And there's just not that much area. Think of it like a bathtub and you're pulling the plug or making a bigger outlet. It's not gonna store as much water, and when it does, it's gonna drain more quickly. So if anything, I would expect it to shrink a little bit, but again, that's kind of a natural process and.
Okay, and I'll pretend this is a follow-up question. You talked about the issue of construction. I mean,
Yeah.
in order to preserve access through this construction site. Is that doable? I mean, you're working in a very narrow area, you're talking about very big.
Oh, it's doable. Everything's doable. No, it's a consideration that is going to have to come into the construction process. And we're gonna outline the phasing, kind of phasing requirements and minimum standards. You know, we need to maintain access for emergency vehicles and residents at all times. You know, we need driveway access to these two places. Carrying Place Road has to stay open and people need to be able to go. That usually becomes part of the construction bidding and process. It's incredible the stuff that some of these guys come up with in terms of the creativity and we can do this. And as long as it works, we can say you need to maintain these functions and these standards. And then
I'm just thinking the contractor's gonna drive up the cost for that.
the phasing on this will increase the cost. It will, and we've included a factor for it, but I mean, who knows what it will really be.
I have a question. We have two more questions. Sorry, Tom?
about construction, once permits are in place, funding's in place, and all that happens, like we think it might.
Yeah.
How long does construction take, start to finish the process?
Well, for something like this, I would expect it, I mean, they could get this done in less than a year. Yeah, so back to the point here, right? If access was not a problem and they could just come in and blow this thing out and get it done, they could get it done in 3 months.
Well, but access is a problem.
So access is a problem and it's gonna impact the price and it's gonna impact the schedule.
So do you foresee there being one lane open at all times?
Yes,
yes,
Me to go back and
absolutely.
forth or whatever. Is
Absolutely.
there a red light and a green light to direct people, or they're flaggers or?
The traffic control is typically by similar to the phasing, right? We typically leave it to the contractor as to how they want to do that, as long as they can maintain standards and something that's safe. On a project like this, and the duration of the project like this, they're gonna wind up doing the lights, probably. They're not gonna have, flaggers would be too expensive and cost prohibitive.
I've got two more thank you.
Sure.
Two more questions. Kit and the gentleman, Paul. Kit first?
What's the life expectancy of that geotextile?
The service life for it? Boy, I have to check. I mean,
Oh, we're talking about 2,100 here.
yeah, that long. I mean, it doesn't rot, it doesn't biodegrade, it doesn't. What you would see on a product like that, typically the biggest, impact on that would be UV. But because it's gonna be buried, it's not a factor.
Oh, it's not gonna be in the slopes that are exposed.
One that's not exposed, it's gonna be underneath either soil or underneath rock or underneath something else, so it won't have that light degradation. That's a really good question, nobody's ever asked me that before.
Thank you, Kit. Gentleman in the back? Yes.
I have a couple questions. I think I'm late to the party because it sounds like people have already made up their mind. This is what's gonna happen. Didn't ever hear any alternatives except for the two proposals about the roads and so forth, but I'm wondering if you lived in the mountains and you got snowed in, you would expect that, right? If you got flooded by a river, you would expect that to happen. If you live in Florida, like I do sometimes, and a hurricane comes, that's expected. So why is it unusual that the water goes over the road and it's impassable for a little while? Isn't that expected? Isn't that something that people take?
No, we're
Damages the road.
responsible. We're responsible for the safety and well-being of all the residents of the town, and if somebody's got a heart attack and they cannot get out, that's on us, so
Right.
I understand your
The
analogy.
second question I had was, we get the money, it takes a year almost to get it done. What happens when you run out of money and you're not finished? When the cost overruns come in, prices are more expensive, unforeseen expenses, so on and so forth, what's gonna happen then?
That happens, so a lot of projects
Who's gonna
around.
get the money for that?
I think that we'd be out there, Alan is probably had. You probably had this happen to you in various projects, and
Yeah.
what has been
You build in a contingency, and if projects go over, you look for another way of doing
we couldn't,
the benefit cost analysis.
we could not raise money from grant funding sources to buy a fire truck. So when Todd Wellgoss was here on the select board, took out I think $500,000 loan. That's a fairly small loan, but nevertheless, it was enough to cover most of the fire truck. So we can borrow money at fairly good rates from the main bond bank, and we've done that before, and we could do that again. I wanna move on because we're kind of running out of time. I wanna get you to, Jeff, address the cost slide or a little bit about the cost.
Okay.
But not yet. I've got one more question, sorry.
That proposal, that presentation was actually the wrong one. I added
Okay.
that and taken that out, but I mean, I do have a couple of copies of our current estimate that I emailed.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm just curious, in resolving one problem, but not creating another.
Okay.
Meaning, the way that that cove is set up, at high tide, the storm surge coming out of the southeast. Most of that water is coming directly to Morris House, actually, the way that that's set up, so but it took the path of least resistance, which was on the road.
Yeah.
So if we raise that section of road to 15 feet. When the surrounding road, where all those homes are on the bank, are at 11.
Yeah.
Are we now forcing that water instead of going over the road, under those homes and crossing the road over there?
Well, I mean, it's possible that if that culvert fails and. Yeah, but I mean, presumably if a 6 foot diameter culvert is either plugged or crushed or something, the road's probably too. So there's your path of least resistance. I mean, I'm not saying it's a really good point, and I'm not saying that it's. That would never happen, because it might, it could, you're right, I mean, water doesn't run uphill.
So culvert is really kind of like your escape route, so to speak. Would it not be more practical for this section of road to be not higher than the remaining road that is susceptible to, where all those homes hang over the edge of the road?
So, right, but if you do that, right, then you're providing a gateway in, so as big storms and sea level rise, then you're giving the water a way to get into the salt pond. And then it's trapped behind the higher sections of roads, and it's still doing that. I don't know, there's a simple solution to that. I don't think there is.
Well, you get the big money, figure that out.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, the other option was one that was identified in that preliminary study, right? You make 1,000-foot long bridge. So that everything flows in, flows out, and the road is still there. But that bridge was a $25 million proposition.
In today's dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was not the alternative was to move the road inland.
So
Yeah, that was
another alternative.
Yes.
Was that ever worked on? Did you guys?
Oh,
work
yeah,
on
we
that?
looked at that, and it was gonna be more expensive, and it was gonna be a lot more complicated. In terms of deeds and research easements and trying to develop the property. And we didn't even look at it.
Irene, to answer that question, legally, we would be tied up for years with the property owners along Carrying Place Lane. Because we'd be asking for eminent domain, we'd have to take some part of their properties and we legally, we'd be tied up in litigation about that. So if we wanted to move this fairly quickly to prevent having to spend $300,000 every time there's a big storm and it closes the road for
You
hours.
said there's gonna be guardrails?
Yeah.
So that's another.
Excuse me, hold on,
Paint dirt pikes down guardrails?
hold on, I want to finish answering this question. Then raise your hand if you have a question, but Irene?
I've heard a bunch of questions tonight about, okay, what if the cost projections are wrong?
Yeah.
What if things change,
Yeah.
whatever, government's no longer giving anybody any money?
Yep.
What is, from a governance standpoint, what is the process going forward? Because at least what I'm hearing is people are concerned that, okay, we get some amount of congressionally directed spending. And we move down the road with this, and then things go off the rails. And at that point, we're probably kind of stuck, right? I mean, do we have option then? So, I mean, I think people are probably wondering, are we all saying yes, and hands on the Bible now, we're done, we're going with this?
Is there a vote in this process? No. Was that on the warrant in January?
There would have to be a vote to approve the match, the $450,000.
We'd have to bring it to the people going forward, yeah. So this is the presentation that we wanted to elicit questions like you've given us tonight to think about. I wanted Jeff to just cover a little bit about the cost analysis. This was gonna be part of the presentation, but Do you wanna just give us a couple of
I mean,
highlights?
I can, I mean, this is, again, this is, it's a preliminary, preliminary cost estimate for the project. And again, it's based on a 95% set, so there's a contingency applied. It's kind of our best guess at this point, based on the plan set that we have. And we break it down into a couple different categories. One is demolition. So that is all the removals, it's all the saw cutting, taking pavement out, taking out the old culverts. You know, and some basic common excavation. And then some of the fill and borrow. You know, basically everything to get the project ready to put the new stuff in. You know, that, I think we've got that tagged, and again, we typically base our unit costs on either other projects that we've recently bid, or we'll take DOT rates. They post a lot of bids for different projects. That's a good resource for us to get current pricing on items. And we kind of do that throughout. So we've broken this down into the major factors. One is the demolition, the other is the pavement, and the pavement section, which is a pretty, say, simple thing for us to estimate, because we know how long the road is, how wide the road is, how thick the road is. And again, unit rates from either DOT or recent projects. You know, we think just the pavement and the road subgrade gravel. And some geotextile underneath it are gonna be, you know, in the order of 425,000. Site work, you know, covers a lot of the other stuff. It covers the erosion sediment control. It'll be kind of the other details. It'll be the riprap. It'll be kind of improvements at the beach. It'll be the guardrail. It'll be you know, some of the other items that the contractor is gonna have to deal with, you know, traffic control, construction phasing. Like I said before, we've applied a factor to that, and this is where it is. Some of this is based on actual quantities from the plans. Some of it is, I mean, honestly, our best guess at this point. We don't know how much contractor's actually gonna charge for phasing the work. It'll depend what they come up with, but we're trying to account for it here. You know, the slope stabilization on the beach, you know, we show the heavy riprap, the geotextile, and then some excavation there. You know, this 602 does not account for reusing some of the existing material. And then a project management fee, we take all that, we add it up, we're just under 3 million. The standard is to say, okay, this is still preliminary, it's not a final set of plans, so we'll apply a contingency factor to it. You know, very early on, it's a high number. You know, we applied 20% to this to say, okay, it's a buffer, it's a cushion. So if you know, if we're low, this should help cover it, and that's where we came up with the 3.5.
And Jeff, just to be clear, we didn't pass that information. I don't think that's in any of the material.
No, it's not. No, I just shared that with the
Yes,
select board.
Yes, so we can make that available to you all. We just received it, so.
But that's kind of how we put these things together. We try to account for most of the items. Doesn't, you know, at this point, it doesn't account like for the last guardrail post and you know, it's not that precise until we get a final construction set of drawings pulled together. But
And let me just ask
it's
Jeff,
a good indicator.
if you do have time to stick around
Sure.
in case there are people like John that want a little bit more
Sure, yeah.
of an example
Yep.
of what to expect. Can you stick around and check? Or do you have a general question?
That's a general.
Okay, go ahead.
So we see where the congressionally directed spending is going. It's getting smaller and smaller, and so say we finally get that number and it's much less than we anticipate. Is there a plan B, for example, that the voters will be able to look at, say, instead of elevation 15, elevation 12?
I think we'll have to consider all the options depending on what the funding situation looks like, and I'd like to say we know soon, but it's probably not gonna be till early in 2026, and we get a good sense of what might be available in Sierra. You might have another, you've got another, perspective on grant
Yeah,
funding.
we do have another grant round in 2026. It's looking like, there'll be 14 million for the management stuff fund. I don't know what we'll cap the maximum grant amount at. Previous rounds, it was 4 million. You do have to have a 5% local match of the total project cost, not the grant fund, the total project cost. And I obviously cannot guarantee
Right.
anything. So I can't guarantee to any of y'all that you will get awarded or not. I will say it's a pretty competitive process. The last round, I had 152 applications, asking for more than $118 billion. We only have 25 million to give. So as you can see, it's very competitive. So I cannot guarantee anything.
So Sierra, I've got a question for you. And I don't, not sure if this is part of your program or not, but kind of part of what we're doing here, you know, the municipal culvert replacement program. Even though this is part of a larger project, might this, or that part of this project qualify for some funding through that program?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, the municipal street crossing program has no funding whatsoever. So I
Okay,
can't let.
all right.
Zero.
Yes. So,
We're gonna wrap this up, literally, we've got to let people go, they think they were planning on an hour meeting and we've gone over, so, let's just go with one more question, and if anybody has specific questions for Jeff, we do not need to let him get back to Cumberland tonight, George.
Thank you. I realize that you've done your best professional estimate of the cost, but is there any way to ground truth that estimate by getting contractors to look at it? The staging, phasing, and maintaining access are very unusual circumstances.
Without a doubt.
And I expect that they will, and it would be a shame to march all the way down the path and then get shocked by the actual bids.
Yeah.
Is there any way to ground truth it ahead of time by having real contractors look at it and tell us?
Maybe, yeah, I mean, I would think so. I mean, once we get a permit level set pulled together, I mean, are there? A project like this is gonna draw, I mean, you'll have local contractors probably, but you'll also have contractors from away looking at this as well. I mean, are there groups nearby that maybe the town has relationships with?
Yeah, yeah,
That could take a look at this?
oh, you asked them, yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully-
yeah.
hopefully they'll have them for you.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes they'll do that, just say, hey, make sure that I'm included on the bid list,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I heard some really great questions from all of you tonight. Thank you. This is how we're gonna make this better if we go forward with it. These are the kinds of questions we haven't thought of probably, and we're relying on you to raise these issues that are concerning you. So I really can't thank you enough for coming out and helping us get to a solution for this area of the road. If, as I said, anyone has a specific question for Jeff, I can't talk too long, but please do that. I want to thank Jeff for coming up and thank you.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind picking up your chair and folding it up and putting it against the wall, or hanging it up on that rack that